Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Kalouf. I'm a solutions engineer focused on infrastructure, and today we'll be looking at Project Explorer for Civil 3D. On today's agenda, we are starting with an overview on Project Explorer, then we are looking into the key features of it. After that, we are looking into the latest updates, and then we are having a demo workthrough. Finally, we are ending with a Q&A session. So, Project Explorer overview. Let's start with the infrastructure pain points we see today, especially in the design phase. So the first pain point is project complexity. We know that projects are becoming bigger and more complex, which is generating large volumes of design data. This is leading, of course, to difficulties to navigate and manage these design data across our design. And we are using manual and time-consuming processes for reporting and validation of our design. And the second pain point is constant change, which is in the nature of infrastructure projects. We have frequent design changes, and this is leading to challenges to update these design changes across our design and across our projects. This is, of course, increasing the risk of design errors that are impacting the project timelines and overall quality. So what can we do to face these pain points? Specifically in the design phase, we have Project Explorer, which is an all-in-one workspace for intelligent Civil 3D elements. It is a part of Civil 3D, which will help you navigate, edit, and extract your data from Civil 3D models, all in a single window. So why use Project Explorer? Well, the main benefits are that you will better navigate and understand your data, which will give you better control of your projects, and by this way minimize design mistakes. You can also directly from Project Explorer edit and extract data, such as customized reports that are specific to your design requirements, and you will get access to tools that are only available in Project Explorer. So user interface. Project Explorer is divided into 3 different levels. On top, we have the objects overview, where Civil 3D objects are categorized by tabs. As you can see, we have the alignments, the assemblies, the corridors, point groups, and so on. And under it, the black area is the graphical interface, where it shows the selected object. And moving one step down to the objects pane. So alignments here in this case are listed by names. You can see the associated elements connected to them, like profile view and surface profiles. And the magenta colored fields you see are fields that can be edited, and you can see the changes directly in in Civil 3D when you edit them. All the other black fields are non-editable. The last level is the sub-object pane. Depends on what you selected in number 2, level 2 in the objects pane. And it shows the details of the selected object, in this case, the statistics and the information of the alignment, like calculated stations, the point index, the station, the easting, the northing, and so on. At the bottom end, you can see preferences and layout. So preferences is if you like to customize the look of your Project Explorer, you can change general settings, the colors. You can also hide some tabs if you're not using them. In layout options, you can change what information to show in each tab. We talked about earlier on top, and you can set intervals and other customized options. So this is important because the information you choose to show here will also then be like shows in your reports when creating them. And I will talk about the reports in the coming slides. So there are 3 different ways to access Project Explorer. Number 1 is from the Home tab. You have the Project Explorer icon. Number 2 is if you specifically right-click on a specific object and open in Project Explorer. This is good because it will take you directly to this exact Civil 3D object you selected. And lastly, from the tool space palette, as you can see here. So next section is the key features of Project Explorer. I included this slide in the beginning of the key features because the main idea with Project Explorer is that it is an all-in-one workspace. And what do I mean by this? So in this specific example, we have 5 different alignments. And if I would open it without Project Explorer, I would need to go to Toolspace, then Prospector. I need to go to the alignments and search for my alignment in order to edit it or open it and then see the associated objects under it. But if I use Project Explorer, I can see all of my alignments listed in one place, of course, with the different information under it we talked about earlier, like the calculated stations. And this is very useful if you have big and larger Civil 3D drawings. So I used to work with maybe 20 alignments in the same project. And this can be very useful to use Project Explorer to give a better understanding of your design, do not need like to jump between different places. So everything is gathered in one place. Next is the compare feature in Project Explorer. So it is very useful in many cases where you can compare different types of objects. For example, you can compare 2 profiles, or a profile with a feature line, or a surface profile. So in this picture, you can see 2 profiles that are compared, the white profile and the green one behind. And the benefit here is that you can compare many profiles without having to use the superimpose feature for every profile you want to compare. It is also possible to change the scale in the graphical interface. So if you are comparing 2 objects and you want to see how they look like in a different scale, you do not need to change the scale of the entire Civil 3D drawing, which can be slow, especially if you have, or the drawing contains many profiles, Coco points, and other heavy Civil 3D objects. Let's now look at pipe networks. So here in the pipe networks tab, you can create pipe networks directly inside Project Explorer. You can edit them and delete them. A very interesting tool for pipe networks is the start and end structure. Here you can choose a range of the pipe network you want to see. For example, in this specific case, between CB1 and INET1. And for this specific range or maybe part of your project, you can work with the pipe network by changing the elevation of your manholes, your pipes, your structures. You can change the slopes also of the pipes, and you can evaluate different design options only in Project Explorer. So this is very useful in the preliminary design phase. Another handy feature is in the pipe networks is swapping parts. So in the sub-objects pane, again, you can select a pipe network and then right-click on a particular object, and you can easily swap parts. You can use the part catalog, for instance, to swap from a 600mm manhole to a 400mm manhole, or maybe swap different pipe types. Once again, you can use the compare tool to evaluate different design options. So it's a very powerful tool that supports the preliminary designs, and actually some Civil 3D users are using Project Explorer for the entire preliminary design in their companies. Parcels is also a very good example where Project Explorer is very effective. You can edit multiple parcel styles at once by selecting them, as I did here in this case. I maybe selected 7 or 8 maybe, and you choose your style you want to change. So this is not possible, for instance, from inside Civil 3D. Parcels can also be compared to each other, to an alignment, or some other objects. You can also choose to filter them depending, or filter the parcels depending on the side they are in, the gradings, and some other customized objects. So the last feature is the reporting tool, which is a highly demanded feature by Civil 3D users. that allows them to create quick reports to files in different formats like PDFs, Excel files, CSV files, docs, HTML, just to name some. You can also create quick reports to an AutoCAD table, and then you can keep the table dynamically linked to Civil 3D or maybe statically, or export to a 2D AutoCAD DWG file. So for example, if you do not need the Civil 3D intelligent data, you want to export an alignment, for instance. So in the alignment, you will just get the curves, the lines, and the text. So only plain AutoCAD elements, which can be demanded in some of the projects and some of the deliveries. When creating reports, there is an option to customize the report settings, like the font and the font size. These can be changed depending on the standards that are required for your design and for your output report. So, Project Explorer updates. In 2024, we had the following updates. A new tab for property set definitions was added in Project Explorer. This new tab allows users to quickly review and make changes to property set data for all objects in the drawing, all gathered in one place. Also, since 2024 update, Project Explorer was added to Civil 3D installation, so it's not a plugin anymore. And to make it easier to work with, Project Explorer can be opened directly when right-clicking on a Civil 3D object, as we showed before. Also, a new tab for sub-assemblies have been added. So after this update, it was possible to edit sub-assembly information like slopes, dimensions, and edit multiple sub-assemblies at the same time. In 2025, the updates were adding the ability to support the exporting of reports to a JSON file, which is a light file format, and also added the ability to filter and include sample line groups, which can be displayed and exported to tables or reports. Also, more properties when working with set columns to the bottom right. So you can add more properties to your alignment, profile, or your count curves. In 2026, more properties were added in the set columns based on the industry needs. So specifically the rail count information. Now count values are available, and you can do inside Project Explorer, and you can do your full count reporting from Project Explorer and include, for instance, the speed and the curvature, because if you do not include the count to the speed and the curvature, this will make not too much sense. So this is especially used for rail designers, and they can better analyze the rail design. Run all actions command in object sets is another one. So in the object sets tab, actions can be associated to each object set now, and these actions can be triggered in a single click. So what do I mean by this? For example, if you want to generate a report, you could do that by just using a pre-configured layout style, pre-configured report style, even the output file name and the path. Where do you want to save this report? In File Explorer. And by this way, you can actually automate the process of creating reports and your count reports. So here I've added some additional resources for you to look at. The Civil 3D Help website for Project Explorer. So this is the main website, the main help website for Civil 3D. And also the Back to Basics YouTube series as well. So in this YouTube series, they've also done a series for Project Explorer, specifically in Civil 3D. So to summarize the main benefits of Project Explorer, I have categorized them in 3 different categories: review and manage, reporting, and editing. First is the ability to review and manage data, as it works as a centralized platform to navigate your design data, as we talked about, across your entire infrastructure project. and this will give you a better understanding of your design. Second is the reporting tool, where it includes a powerful reporting tools that allows template-driven reports, which allows you to generate reports that are specific to your project requirements. And the third one is editing, where you can easily edit and change different design options with batch editing capabilities to streamline your workflows. So the last section is a demo workthrough done by my colleague James Tweed, and I will leave you with it for the coming 20 minutes.
So this is Civil 3D 2024. As you can see, in 2024 we have the Project Explorer up here on the tab. This has been around since, I believe, 2022. Previously we had restrictions on the use of this, so it was for AEC collection customers only rather than standalone users. This is now available to all users. As well as this, this was an optional install, and this is now available automatically when you install Civil 3D for all types of users. So I've just opened up the Project Explorer. You can see here the kind of general overview of it. We have a tabs for each of the main object types: assemblies, corridors, point groups, etc. And as you can see in this, we have base objects and sub-objects. So these base objects contain that information, that objects, and the sub-objects contain information contained within that. A nice thing about this is that with each of these objects, we're able to zoom to the alignment in the drawing. We can also press Control and highlight that alignment within the prospector to see that. You can also go into the prospector and open up everything within the Project Explorer as well. So you can see there, I've opened that up within the Project Explorer. Similarly, you can literally click on an object. So for instance, let's say that parcel, and we can also open that in Project Explorer. So as I mentioned a second ago, we have the concept of objects, base objects, and sub-objects. And this is really important as when we start creating reports, we start by selecting that base object and then formatting that report with sub-objects. Here you can see base objects like alignment, corridor, or assemblies. For example, there's a number of specific tools in each of these specific to, for instance here, in the corridors we can compare to a surface. With the corridors we can jump up the station range. So there's a number of specific tools for each object type. For instance, here we can see that that profile view of our alignment. So down here we've got our sub-objects. So you can see here for this alignment we have calculated stations, alignment entities, PIs, super elevation, critical stations, and property sets. Different types of alignments would have different types of properties assigned to them. For instance, there'd be different properties for a rail alignment, for example. With, say, something like a storm network, the sub-objects are actually the individual items within that network, so the pipes, structures, and pipe runs. Once again, we're able to select on something like that and highlight that entire run. as well as perhaps the individual pipes within that, and zoom to that. So with object types, for instance, like this alignment, we're able to create a quick report. So take a quick report to the file. Here, once you've selected that, we're able to specify the sub-objects we want to report on. I'm going to pick station values. You have the option then to filter with an alignment the station range, so you could specify where that starts and stops. In this example, I'm not going to do that. With each different object, there are different sorts of filters available. Just moving on, so we've filtered that. Now I've got the option to create a file name, so we call that report alignment. We're able to maybe specify what we want that to be. I'll make it a PDF file. We can specify that layout style. Click OK. Specify somewhere for that, so let's just go, yep. Yes, let's review the contents of that. And we can see there that we've created a report of that information. Perhaps I need to format this a little bit better. So now we've got our information, we've got our alignment, we've got all of our values here. We can actually create a report for that, so we can report to file. Here we can select which particular sub-objects we want to report on. So maybe calculate station ranges, alignment entities, etc. We're just going to go on calculate stations. With the option to filter this information, so we can filter a certain start station and end station for this. I'm not going to. Each different type of object has a number of different filtering options here, so maybe I want to report that as a CSV file. I can specify a name for that. I can either use a layout style from a layout style tab, which I'll cover later, or a custom layout style. So we click OK to that. Save that somewhere. Maybe review that content now. And as you can see, we've generated a report straight away on that alignment. So an important point to note is you have the option for layout styles. So layout styles essentially allow you to control how that information is shown, both on this user interface here, but as well within your reports, as you saw earlier. So we're able to potentially, for each object type, turn off certain objects or change the order of them. We can specify in this instance for the alignment the intervals that we want to show in that, or these labels, and how we show that on a you can change the order of them, so going up or down. I'll just keep that as default. And this is really crucial, as this can dictate everything we do within the Project Explorer is dictated by how we see this information of our objects, which is controlled by layout styles. So I mentioned object sets a minute ago. You can see here we don't have any in our drawing currently. Essentially, an object set is a way of defining an action with a list of objects associated with it. And this could be something like generating a report or a table or a spreadsheet, which can all be dynamically linked to your drawing. In this example, we have an alignment with a number of calculated stations and alignment entities. The issue with entities is that in a report, which these do commonly find their way into, is that the start station and the end station then points are the same. and they find themselves in the same part of the table. A way around that is to create a report instead with calculated stations. What we can do, first of all though, I'll just show you how to create a report with object sets for an alignment using the entities. So we add that alignment to our object set. You can see here, because we had that alignment entity selected, it automatically selects that as our sub-object type. Creating that object set, we can give that a name. So we're just going to call it test for now. We can describe what that is. We give an action to that. So in this instance, I want to create a table in the model space. Do I want that to be manual or dynamic? I want it to be dynamic. We can pick an insertion point for that. So I want that to be here. And we can call that test table. So we click OK. So a new object set has been created. We can see that here. And as you can see, we've now generated a report on the alignment entities containing all of that information shown within the sub-object. So now we've got our table with alignment entities. You might face that issue that you want to change that to calculated stations. Well, that's really simple. You've now got that object set up. You're able to change that object now to calculated stations. You can see that there. However, this is a huge table with loads of different values, and maybe you don't need every single station value shown there. What you can do is, with calculated stations, we can look at our layout options, and we can actually adjust what information we show within the sub-object, which then in turn will then change what we see with our report table, with our object set. So we can change the intervals of alignments. We can actually remove them if we want as well. We can show alignment entity tangent points or profile entity tangent points, profile high and low points specifically. So in this instance, I'm going to just show the entity line entity intervals, and let's set that at 100. Let's double this as well, and double this. Click OK. We'll see that's changed, and that should have automatically updated your table there. So just to kind of reiterate the point earlier, I've edited the layout style even further, removed a couple more points, so you can actually see that table is now really small quite clearly. With our object set as well as being able to edit all of the kind of what we're doing, how that operates, and the insertion point of that table, we're actually able to edit how this table looks. So we have a default style, but we can also use a specific table style. We can do this manually initially, so we can edit our values for different column sizes, you know, fonts, etc. How that table wants to look. Save that, and then we can use that as a template. So if I go to the styles, I'll take up, open up a style. I've now uploaded that, and you can see there we've changed that table style now to a preset value. So as with the assemblies, you'll see some similar concepts with property sets and property set management in the Project Explorer. So in 2023.2, we saw the addition of a property set overview for each base object type. We can look into, let's say, for instance, assemblies again. We can look into the property set values applied to this assembly. The blank values here we can actually adjust. We can, if I click on this, we can add or remove certain property set values. For instance here, I can select multiple values and change the name. So we'll call it system name James. You can see there that's been applied now to both. If we were to change one perhaps to other, you would see when we highlighted both of them that that value varies, and then we could change it back to say James for everything, and there you go. You're able to add your own custom property sets. So for the assemblies, for instance, we have a number of property set definitions which apply to that object type, so assemblies already set up in the drawing, and we can add that value. But one of the issues with this tab within these objects is that we can only see property set values that have been applied to the objects in our drawing. What happens if we want to have a look at all of the property set definitions in our drawing? Well, for that, we have this tab, this new tab that's been placed in 2024, and this gives an overview of every property set definition within our drawing. One of the really nice things about this overview tab is we're able to filter through our property set values for different things. So at the moment I just have an overview of all of them, but you might notice that some of the property set values here have some warning signs applied to them for different violations. We can actually filter via them violated property set definitions. We can even choose to filter by certain types of violations, but for now I'm just going to show all of the violated property set definitions and kind of run through what them violations mean and what we can do to correct them. Another thing I should mention as well is that within this tab you're actually able to see, let's say for instance the Civil 3D alignment, we're actually able to see the amount of supported references within that property set definition, as well as the amount of properties that applies to, as well as the number of properties within that definition. So with that in mind, we'll have a look at some of these violations. So we can see here that this property, for instance, it says for the parcel, this property set definition is not referenced to any object or styles. And also this property set definition does not apply to any object or styles. So with it being properties parcel, we should assume that that should be applied to the parcel object in Civil 3D. So what we can do is we can define our property sets, and that opens up the style manager. If you're familiar with property sets in Civil 3D, this should be a familiar sight. Essentially our property set definition for parcel, we can click on that and we get an overview of some general information and what that applies to and the definitions in there. But looking at this value now from that flag, we can see that there's no object which this property set definition applies to. So if we look for the parcel property, you can click that, apply, OK, and we can see there now that that property has been applied now to the parcel object. The second definition means that this property hasn't been applied to any parcels within the drawing. Should also mention with property set definitions, if we look at some violations as well, you can see a property set definition that contains no visible properties. So this might be a property set definition that you might want to remove because it has little use with no properties applied. Moving on to looking at the overview of these property sets, we can actually as well have a look at an overview of all of the objects which these property sets are applied to. We're able to filter between what type of object we want to look at. So maybe we want to see this creation log property, but only applied to corridors or assemblies, profiles, you know, all the rest. But I'll leave it as unfiltered. And then we can look at the actual definition values. So we can filter between, if we had a very complex property set definition with a lot of different values, perhaps we want to only look at a value for, say, the word width or features containing the width. We're able to filter between the property name and as well as the value that that property set definition has been given. So, for instance, with width, we can actually do an asterisk, write the word width, and we can see all of these property set definitions apply to these objects with that geometric data. So we can see that. We could also filter from values. So if we were to pick, let's say, a value here, if we were able to apply a value, let's call it James, we could also filter by the value name. So we can write James, and we can see there it will only show us them values with the word James applied. Finally, I'd like to mention with property set definitions as well, we can create an object set. So here, and we've got two options. We can choose to filter by the property set references or by the property sets, and they have their own individual filters. So we can filter here by type. In this case, it's a property set for a pipe, so there is only pipes there. Or if we did by property sets, you'll be able to filter by the individual items there. So we can go next. Again, we can choose the object action. In this instance, I'm just going to create a HTML file for that. We can set up our report style, etc. Now we've created that property set, object set, sorry. We're able to change that value in here if we please. But just looking at this report, I'll run that selected action. There you can see we've got a report created there.
Thank you for watching the session, and please do not hesitate to come in touch.